Hello and welcome to the class. The topic for today's class is source method of teaching, which is a very important teaching method in pedagogy of a school subject, history. So there are various teaching methods teachers uses in their classes. There are various devices, techniques of teaching. So a teacher has to make use of a suitable teaching method so that they can make teaching meaningful, purposeful, interesting, and effective. So, a good method of teaching can bring about good results, even if there are certain less kind of resources. And on the other hand, if a teaching method is not selected effectively, then maybe the curriculum, the transaction which is required of a teacher in the classroom is not successful. So, therefore, it can rightly be said that success or failure of teaching methods depends on the selection by the teacher, and also the methods of teaching should be according to the needs and interest of the learners. So the learning objectives for today's class are to learn to utilize the technique of using a source method in history, to classify the various sources as available in history, to understand the types of data like primary or secondary, or identify if whether it is primary data or secondary data, from where sources have derived. So the study and use of original material and original sources are called the source method of teaching and learning, which gives a much better understanding of history than any other method. So it should provide actually a creative expression in which we can say that it is an activity oriented method. But generally it is a teacher oriented method in which teacher guides students to further moves on to their activity. So it is generally used in the subject social studies or history subject. Generally sources mean a person, books, or document, or picture, or actual objects that can provide information for learning. So it is learning directly from the actual sources. For example, for social studies, they can be a contract with the bank, or one can also take students to museums to find the objects to study. So first of all, we need to teach the students that how they come to know that what is history, and whatever is written before, written in the books before them, or whatever teacher teaches in the class, that how it is they have come to know that what from what source they have found out that this is the truth, this is the right thing. How we come to know, how we, these are the basic questions which you know comes in the minds of the students. So we need to tell them that those who study the past are called archaeologists, and those who write the history are called historians. So they study remains of old buildings, painting, sculpture, utensils, coins, bones, which ever are excavated. So archaeologists are like detectives who use these sources as clues to find out about the past. So here we can make our students to understand, and we can ask few questions from them, that collect some old objects so that you can find as much information as you can. Or how much can you guess what kind of objects are these, how much you can be sure of that what is the value of these objects, so that they come to know that these little things which are excavated historically from the historical sites, these things, or from a little activity, a role play method or a dramatization method, we come to know that this is how we come to know about the past. So history is, however, a study of the past only. So our ancestors have left behind many things, and which are the evidences which serve as the knowledge for the past. So these are the sources of history. So how do we use sources? A source is anything that has been left behind by the past. So it might be a document, a treaty, it might be alternatively be a building, a picture, a train ticket, perhaps a plastic cup. So they are called sources because they provide us with information which can add to the sum of our knowledge of the past. So history as the subject of study is more or less at the mercy of the sources, because without them, without any evidence, we cannot say that this is history, or this is the certain fact or event which has occurred in history. So there need to be certain evidence before that. So the past can neither easily be observed directly, or nor it cannot be only recalled or on the basis of oral traditions. We need certain solid proofs for that. So there are classification of sources according to the traces which are available, which are left behind in the past. So a historian tries to construct a systematic account of the past event with the help of historical sources, which are classified as follows, like archaeological sources, literary sources, or oral tradition. So these are the broad categories of sources in which the history is divided, is classified. So history have various kinds of resources or sources. We will be discussing it in the present class today, and also we will discuss about the various examples of these sources. So first of all, we will discuss the archaeological sources. So these are subdivided into various types, like monumental findings or the monuments. So these are the building images, pottery, terracotta figures, and other antiquities which are found in the monuments, or while finding out the monuments, these are associated with it. So ancient buildings, sculptures, paintings, potteries, and terracotta figures throw light on the type of civilization of the period to which they belong. The Archaeological Department of the Government of India, or we can say the ASI, the Archaeological Survey of India, this is the organization which excavated a large number of sites at various places of India, and it provides considerable material of historical value. So with the help of this material, the historians have reconstructed the history of ancient and medieval India. So this is how we can find the boards of ASI at the front entry of every monument or the building or the heritage sites which have been protected under ASI. And this is the organization which is responsible for maintaining these buildings, so for taking care of these buildings, these monuments. Then there are artifacts. These are the things which were buried underground, and many things belonging to the past, like metal tools, pottery, articles of daily use, etc., have been found buried under the ground. So these artifacts tell us about the past. Then we can ask our students by showing them pictures or by taking them to the museum directly, that can you identify the objects in these pictures? Because at that time, at the earlier times in the past, the things were used in different way. Those were prepared in different ways. So what are they made of? So what kind of material was used at while making these kind of artifacts? What were they used for? What do you think that what were the things, how they were utilized, how they were used? So these questions should be discussed regularly with the students. So it's not always that teacher need to just give the facts to the students, but the students should be involved and they should know the value of the sources. Then the next kind of archaeological sources are epigraphics. So India is very rich in such authentic sources, and consisting of inscription of stones, pillars, rocks, or the copper plate bricks, seals, terracotta, images. So these are all epigraphs. Epigraphic, gives us concrete evidence for the various phases of Indian history, like the various inscriptions of the great ruler Ashoka has been found at various places in India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, even in Nepal. So these kind of inscriptions let us know about the type of socio-religious culture, the customs and traditions of that time, the languages which were used at that time. So just a one piece of source will let us know about the various aspects of history or the civilization of that time. Then there are inscriptions, which are also the stone carvings like this. We can see in the picture that in this form, the various rulers have got carved, various kind of stones, which were known as the inscriptions. So these were the writings which were carved on stone or copper plates. So we can ask the students, have you ever seen anything inscribed on stone? Then they will be able to understand, because in history there are certain things which are in abstract way we have to think about, or we can ask our students to make stories regarding that. So the storytelling technique is also one of the most important technique which need to be used in history, which makes it interesting. So why would people want to write on stone or metal? Were there no papers available, or the art of languages or writing has not developed yet? What was the reason they were doing that? So they will be forced to think about it. So they will find a reason behind that. What would they want to write? Who wanted them written? Okay. So then sometimes orders from kings were inscribed so that people could ready read and obey them. There were also records of past events. For example, what happened in a battle. So there were certain places at which the battle was won by some rulers, and they used to get it inscribed there as a form of memory. So then there is another archaeological resource like numismatics. So numismatics is a study of coin. Old coins are very helpful in constructing ancient history. The extent of the kingdoms of particular ancient Indian kings, the length of their regions, and the succession of different rulers of the same dynasty can be known through these sources. So a little coin is very helpful in finding out the various aspects. Coins also throw light on the economic and religious conditions of their times. They also illustrate political and commercial relations with neighbors in the past. So this is, for example, we can show the students, and also as an history teacher, you can also take a look. You need to understand that how you will be able to understand your students that how these sources are helpful. So just by looking at this coin, you can ask them that name 4 things that this coin is able to tell us. So whose image do you see on the coin? Why is this image shown on the coin? Why was it necessary to engrave any kind of image on the coins? In which year was it coined? The year is also mentioned on it. To which country does the coin belong? It is also mentioned on it. Which metal is this coin made of? And why was this kind of material only used for making of these coins? So this is how the coins were also of important use in various dynasties. If we see, they used to have various kinds of material used for their currencies. Then the next kind of sources are the literary sources. So it can also be subdivided like sacred or religious literature. So this kind of religious literature. It includes the 4 Vedas. It describes social and political life of the Indo-Aryans. The Kalpa Sutras are manuals of rituals, which throws light on the development of sciences of geometry and architecture in ancient India. Then there are epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata and the Puranas, which throw light on the social and political conditions of the Aryans who settled in northern India, as well as the history of the several dynasties. There are total 16 Puranas available for before us, as we have found out through history. The sacred literature includes the Tripitakas, the Buddhist and the Jain chronicle literature. So this is how various kinds of literature, the religious literatures or the sacred literatures, which are revered by our citizens, have been a very great source of the customs, traditions, the various kind of code of conduct or the morals which were practiced in the society. Then there are manuscripts like old diaries, letters, newspapers, reports. There are certain original manuscripts also available in various museums which are established in India, and government files, biographies, old books. These also tell us about the past. Many travelers have also left their accounts, the travelers who have visited India. So we can ask the students, can you name some old books that tell you about the past? So they will be able to recall a few common things which are being discussed in their homes, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Gita, or various kinds of Upanishads. Many households, Hindu households, have these kinds of literature with them. So many manuscripts were written thousands of years ago. So they were called manuscripts because they were written by hand. So the Latin word manu means hand. So we can ask our students that why it was written by hand. Were there no typing material available at that time? Where there was no ink? Do you think manuscripts were written on paper? And if not, what do you think they were written on? So these books were about religious beliefs and practices, the lives and schedule of the kings, the medicine used at that time, the science. There were epics, poems, plays. So in which languages were these manuscripts written? So you can ask various kinds of questions from the students, and with the help of, like we have discussed, like while using teaching aids also in your class, you need to include the students with you. And also when you are using the source method, at that time also you should include the students with you. So you should try to ask as many as questions you can ask. You can give them these questions to be completed from work from their home, or they can also give answers whatever come to their mind in the classroom also. Then there is a secular literature which does not focus on any one religion. So it includes the novels, dramas, poems, books on medicine, grammar, astronomy, biographies, or the autobiographies written by various rulers, travelers who have visited India, accounts, personal diaries, official orders which have been released, or the dispatches. So there are numerous kinds of examples available in Indian history. Like Abhigyan Shakuntalam was the one of the biggest dramas written by Kalidas, and there are various kinds of dramas and poems written by Kalidas. Then there is a drama written by Vishak Datta, Mudra Rakshas. Then there is a book very important written by Kautilya or Chanakya, who was the minister of Chandragupta Maurya, and who wrote the book Arthashastra, which mentions about the various kinds of policies or the diplomacy policies which need to be taken care of by the kings, which can be carried out by the kings. So what should a king do? What should a common citizen do? Then there is a book written by Panini on the Sanskrit grammar called Ashtadhyay. Babur, who was the Mughal ruler who established the Mughal dynasty in India, he wrote the Baburnama, or it is known as, the first account or the autobiography which have been written by a ruler in proper way. Then Jahangir, another Mughal ruler, he wrote his autobiography as Tujuke Jahangiri. Then one of the 9 gems of Akbar, the Mughal ruler again, Abul Fazl, he wrote Akbarnama, all revolving around the ruler Akbar. Then Queen's Proclamation of 1858, in which she transferred the power to Indian governor at that time, the British governors. Official dispatches of various governors and viceroys, treaties, and official reports. These are the examples of documentary sources like newspapers, diaries, travelers' account, journals, reports of commissions of inquiry, manifestos of the parties, government official records, minutes of the meetings when they are prepared after, while going on with the meetings, private letters like letters written by our past Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru to his daughter Indira Gandhi. So these are also our sources, or the letters written by Mahatma Gandhi to his son, the court records, the books, any kind of brochures, tributes, magazines, journals. So these all are the documentary evidences or the sources. Then there are other kind of accounts like the foreign travelers accounts. So these accounts of foreign travelers to India include the accounts of Greek writers like Megasthenes, who was there in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Then the Chinese pilgrims who visited India to study about the Buddhism religion like Fayan, Hunsang, Itzing. Then there was one Arab scholar, Al-Biruni, who has written the book Kitabul Hind, where we came to know that why India was known as Hind or Hindustan. So these form an important source of Indian history. Historians get their information from two different kinds of sources, primary and secondary. So primary sources are what? They are the first-hand sources, and secondary sources are second-hand sources. So we are classifying the primary and secondary sources according to data. So the primary sources are called original sources, and these include primary data, the accounts prepared by persons directly connected with an event or the eyewitnesses to it, like official orders, treaties, laws, autobiographies, or the personal memories. So a primary source is a document or physical object which was written or created during the time under study. So at that time, it is a first-hand experience. These sources were present during an experience or time period and offer an inside view of a particular event. So primary sources give us first-hand, you are there, insights into the past. So they are also the most important tools an historian has for developing an understanding of an event. So primary sources serve as the evidence an historian uses in developing history and interpretation, and in building an argument to support that interpretation. So primary sources provide a window into the past, unfiltered access to the record of the artist, the social, scientific, and political thought and achievements during the specific period under study, produced by people who lived during that period. So bringing young people into close contact with these unique, often profoundly personal documents and objects can give them a very real sense of what it was like to be alive during a long past era. So some of the examples of these primary sources are original documents like the diaries, speeches, manuscripts, letters, interviews, news, film footage, autobiographies, official records, creative works like poetry, drama, novels, music, art of that period, the relics or the artifacts like pottery, furniture, clothing, buildings. So, for example, we can say the diary of Anne Frank, which was who was an 8 years girl who was there in the prison of the German dictator Hitler. So she wrote the experiences of a Jewish family during World War II. So what happened with them? So it is a primary source. The Constitution of India is a primary source. The coins which have been excavated directly from the sites of Mughal period or of various kinds of dynasty or periods, the forts of Shivaji Maharaj or various kinds of monuments, these are the live sources, the primary sources. These we can discover on our own also. Now we will discuss about the secondary sources. So these are also known as the secondary data, as these are prepared by those persons who were not directly connected with the actual happening, but who prepared their accounts with the help of eyewitnesses, like standard historical works based on original accounts. The teacher should select and use them very carefully for classroom purposes. If they are making use of secondary sources, so they should be selected very carefully, as some of these might have been based on personal prejudices or biases. So the teacher should use only reliable and authentic sources, and for that they have to verify if these kind of sources which they are going to present before the students are authentic or not. So it can be a secondary source, can be a document or a recording that relates or discusses information originally presented elsewhere. It involves generalization, analysis, synthesis, interpretation, or evaluation of the original information. So examples of some secondary sources are books, newspapers, pamphlets, encyclopedias. So there are numerous kinds of resources available, just depends on a teacher to find out which are the true sources or the evidence-based sources or have a certain kind of authenticity among them. So these are the importance of using sources now. It engages students. The primary sources help students relate in a personal way with the events of the past and promote a deeper understanding of history as a series of human events, because they are interacting with the primary sources. So these are the snippets of history direct, they are witnessing that. They encourage students to seek additional evidence through research. So the first person accounts of events helps the historical events looks to them, makes more real. It fosters active reading and response, develops critical thinking skills. So in analyzing sources, students move from concrete observations and facts to questioning and making inferences about the materials. Questions of the creator bias, purpose, and point of view may challenge a student's assumptions. So this is how they will be able to develop critical thinking skills. These sources will help in constructing knowledge. So inquiry into sources encourages students to wrestle with contradictions and compare multiple sources that represent differing points of view, confronting the complexity of the past. Students construct knowledge as they form reasoned conclusions, base their conclusions on evidence, and connect sources to the context in which they were created. So synthesizing information from multiple sources, integrating what they glean from comparing sources, they will be able to compare also which is correct, which is not, what they already know and what they learn from the research, allow students to construct content knowledge and deepen their understanding. It naturally gives first-hand knowledge to the students, so it helps students to understand the various events in history, to consider different points of view in analysis. So while analyzing primary sources, students move from concrete observations and facts to inferences about the materials. So point of view is one of the most important inferences that can be drawn. To understand the continuum of history, students come to understand that we all participate in making history every day, leaving behind our primary source documentation. Hence, it may be examined as a record of the past. So the immediacy of first-person accounts of events is compelling to most of the students. It is utilized to acquire empathy for the human condition at that time. Primary sources help students relate personally to events of the past, to gain deeper understanding of the history as a series of various human events which have taken place at that time, that how the humans used to, the prehistoric human survived on the earth, how they survived in the jungles without proper houses, how they prepared food, how they got food, what was the condition of the risk involved in hunting. So these all will create empathy for the human conditions at that time. So a lot of questions come across us while we think of a source, like who, where, what, when, how, why. So these all kinds of questions should be, arised in the minds of the students. Like who made it, who used it, who is in the picture, who is he, where is it now, where was it earlier, where was it made, what questions will be like, what is it, what is it used for, what does it show, when was the book written, Which era does it talk about? What kind of features can you see in the paintings which have been depicted? Or what kind of colors were used? How these colors were made? How was it found? How was it made? How was it used? Why was it made? Why did it survive for so long? Why are we studying as a source for studying history? So there are certain methods we should utilize while making use of the source method. The first method is the demonstration method. So in this, a teacher can best convince his pupils' sources by giving a demonstration of how to utilize. So by reading a particular passage from the original source, supporting or illustrating his point or throwing additional light on his opinion, he should make it clear to his pupils that source material is to be employed at appropriate times. So this will motivate his pupils to go through some such sources for clarifying certain controversial issues or for arriving at truth about a certain point. Then the next kind of step which a teacher could take is assign some kind of reading. So the teacher can introduce the use of source by assigning selected passages to be read by the selected students. So the selected passages should be interesting and immediately connected with the topic in hand which you are teaching in the class. So this kind of assigned reading will also, generate interest among the students. Then the problem solving technique, the step can also be used by the teacher if they want to involve students in learning about the resources. So problems can best be solved with the help of sources. The pupils discover and correct errors in the textbook sometimes and in other secondary accounts, if any, or if they find out any kind of, particular feature in while reading, going through certain sources, they can point out that. So for that, group discussion can be held among the students in the class, or it can be held with the help of the teacher. So they can arrive at a proper conclusion. So this is an activity oriented teaching method basically. So thus sources can be utilized in the beginning of the lesson. It can be used during the course of the lesson as well as after finishing the lesson. So it totally depends on the teacher when they want to use it. So certain useful extracts from the original or secondary sources may be selected for introducing or developing the lesson. Students may also be asked to write answers to some questions based on those sources. The main aim is to help students to cultivate a proper skill for their use and to develop the habit of self-study. So see, many kinds of skills will also be able to develop among our students. Then there are certain difficulties also which arise in utilizing the original sources, because it is not such an easy task to find the authentic sources. So the sources of real value are not available actually. So in India, original sources of real worth suitable especially for school students are too scanty and too disjoint. Efforts have been made to edit and compile source books suitable for school students. So no one can give evidence before this that this source is of real value, this is authentic. So then the next difficulty which arises is the difficulty of language. Almost all the original sources of historical or cultural value are in foreign languages. So school children cannot be expected to deal with long passages in English, Sanskrit, Pali, Arabic, or Persian, the languages in which most of the original sources are available. Relevant and short extracts from contemporary documents in the pupil's mother tongue alone serve the desired purpose, and these are seldom available. So there are certain restrictions also, that every kind of source cannot be attained or obtained by the student in their mother tongue only. So sometimes they have to go through various kinds of difficulties by identifying the language problems. Then there are certain conflicts among the contemporary writers. They do not agree upon the things which have been mentioned. Like all other writers, source writers also have their own prejudices, faults, preferences, or limitations. So according to their own points of view, authors of different sources give different account of events or movements during the same period. Sometimes lost in the maze of conflicting views about the same event or movement, the students feel that they cannot solve all the problems through the source method. So sometimes they will also get confused that what to believe and what to not. So this all depends on the area in which the students need to identify that how can we judge that whatever has been written in front of us or what we are going to find out is correct. So there are various kinds of advantages of source method. It helps in gathering reliable evidence. Students using source realize the difference between a guess and which is the assertion point, between the exact words spoken or written by a person and what someone else has said about that person's statements. So thus they gather, reliable evidence from various sources. A sense of reality is developed. The use of sources gives a sense of reality if properly handled and utilized. Source accounts enrich and supplement the textbook account. Then there is training in reasoning and judgment. The use of source develops one's critical faculty of reading, thinking, reasoning, and judgment. It teaches a person to examine carefully before arriving at a final decision. Its application can be transferred profitably to other situations in one's life. So this kind of training is also given with the help of, if we teach them how to use various kinds of sources for developing the reasoning and the judgment part. It also gives the functional knowledge, so the learning becomes interesting through this method. It provides, obviously, it gives interesting experience, so it is direct and first experience. So thus the students, develops motivation and interesting ambience in the class. It develops a skill of data collection, thinking skill, and observation skill. It makes the subject meaningful. So this is how we have discussed today the source method of teaching, which is a very important method to be used while discussing about the various kinds of resources. So the methods and strategies of teaching history is very important, and there should be some factors which need to be determined while using selecting some kind of teaching methods, like the nature of the child, the objectives of the instruction, nature of the subject matter, the classroom environment, or the expertise of the teacher who adopts a method. So there are various kinds of characteristics of a good teaching method which need to be used by the teacher. So it should provide a group a related experience. If a teacher is trying to explain certain event of history in the class, so the sources which are mentioned or the teaching material or the method which have been used by the teacher should be appropriate and related to that. So it should be related to the experiences and the activities. It should be arranged on an individual as well as group basis. It should give scope for the creative expression of the child's individuality. It should rouse curiosity among the minds of the students. So they will be interested in finding out more about the topic. It should be purposeful. It should give concrete learning experience to the students, and it should be based on realistic situations. Then it should train the students in the techniques of self-study and the methods of acquiring knowledge through personal effort or intuition. So they will be able to develop a sense of self-study habit. So this is very important, because history is a subject. If the teacher is not showing interest while teaching, or any kind of facts are missing while teaching, so that student will also think that it is not important to study this subject or this topic. So it is very important that they know the importance of self-study, because history should be revised every time, and if it is not taught in proper manner, like making use of timelines, time graphs, which we have discussed in the teaching aids methods, teaching aids utilization. So this will be very helpful in preparing a practical and objective kind of information for the students. So it should awaken interest among the students, so the desire to go for further study and explore and discover the knowledge on their own. So these are the techniques and methods which should be used by the students, so they will be able to learn that how they can find out any kind of information. So source method is that kind of teaching in which original sources of information are used to explain a point or a variety of a fact, or establish a principle, or describe an event. So this method involves activity, both activeness is done from the both sides, the teacher as well as the student. So both are involved in this kind of activity. So it can be used in the beginning of the lesson so that the students are motivated. While teaching the topic, you can show the pictures, like you are teaching the topic of Mughal Empire, or you are talking about the Mughal architecture, which has certainly different from the other architecture which has been present in India. So what were the features of that kind of architecture? For that, the teacher can collect the various pictures of the Mughal architecture present in whole of India, and then based on the reign of different rulers, can discuss through the help of pictures that what kind of features can be observed in these buildings. So this can be used during the course of the lesson to develop it and correlate facts even on principles evolved in the lesson. But there are certain demerits of this using this kind of method. There are certain limitations, as the method is too complex and technical. So if you do not find a right source, so it can be a wrong teaching method to be used in the class. And it is not always possible for a teacher to make access of the resources or the sources every time. They cannot find out. So if they do not have resources, they will not be able to find the source also. So use of sources is not easy for every teacher to be used, as they are not properly trained for that. So the teacher trainees need to make use of these methods while doing their teaching practice also. So it is time consuming, because a lot of time is wasted in finding out the right or the correct source, which is evidence based. And sometimes it becomes expensive if that source has to be collected from somewhere else, or the students have to be taken to that place for seeing those sources. So this is how there are certain limitations and demerits of source method of teaching history. So these are certain references which you can go through. There is always Geek eGyan Kosh, which gives very informative information regarding any kind of topics. And thus you will be able to find out more interesting ways to make use of sources while teaching history. Now let us move on to our next section, that is the evaluation questions part. And the question number 1 is, which of the following is not the category of sources of history? So this we have discussed that there are broad 3 categories of sources of history, and the options are archaeological sources, literary sources, oral traditions, or trees and plants. So we can clearly identify that the first 3 are the right classification of our sources, and trees and plants is not the correct one. Then the next question is, which of the following is not the difficulty in utilizing resources? So the options are: sources of real value are not available, difficulty of language, conflict among the contemporary writers, or the primary resources. So here we have to find out which is the limitation, which is creates difficulty in utilizing resources. And the option is primary resources, because primary resources is not a limitation in utilizing of any kind of resources. And the above 3 options are certainly the limitations. Question number 3 is, which of the following is not the primary sources? So we have discussed about the various examples of primary secondary sources. And the options are official orders, treaties, autobiographies, or eyewitness account. So eyewitness account is not the primary source, because it is a secondary source, because he has witnessed, and then he will be translating the certain amount of information. Then the question 4 is dash involves novels, dramas, poems, books on medicine, grammar, astronomy, biographies, autobiographies, etc. So what kind of literature is this? The options are secular literature, epigraphics, monuments, or archaeology. So the correct answer is secular literature, because it is based on particular, it is not based on any particular religion. And many kinds of travelers' accounts, personal diaries, and official orders, dispatches are also included in secular literature. Next question is numismatics is related to. Options are study of religions, study of coins, study of inscriptions, or study of sources. So what study is related to numismatics? So the correct option is the study of coins. Next question is the study and use of original material and original sources are called the dash method of teaching and learning. So the options are technology, source, individual, or drama. So obviously we are discussing about the source method, and the study and use of original material and original sources is called the source method of teaching and learning. The next question is dash is the study of prehistory and human history through the excavation and analyzation of artifacts. So what kind of study this is known as? The options are archaeology, numerology, aristocracy, or Indology. So the correct answer is archaeology, which deals with the excavation of the past sites, ancient sites, and the persons who do this kind of study are known as the archaeologist. Next question is religious literature includes. Options are Ramayana, Mahabharata, Kalpasutras, all of the above. So the correct answer is all of the above, because these above options are all related to the sacred or the religious literature part. Question number 9 is historical sources are dash left behind in the past. What are these? Options are points, traces, plants, or expert. So the correct answer is traces, because historical sources are the traces which have been left behind in the past to study history. Next question is what is ASI? So the options are Archaeological Survey of India, Art and Science of India, Artifacts and Sources of India, or none of the above. So the correct answer is Archaeological Survey of India, which is responsible for the maintenance of the monuments, the ancient monuments of India. So with this, we come to the end of the class today. And I hope that you will go through this topic and references to know better about understand this topic. Thank you very much.